Wonderful. A very good morning to our US friends, a good afternoon to our friends in EMEA, and welcome to another Astrato Live, this time September edition. For those of you who've been following us, we've been doing these Astrato Lives on a regular cadence, showing you all the exciting updates that we are working on Astrato, features that we're releasing and coming up in the near future, but also some updates from our community. Last August, one we skipped and we replaced with a dash off, and Jane will tell you more about it. But before I get started, a quick introduction to the Astrato team here on the call. We have myself, Martin Mahler, the CEO and founder of Astrato, Piers Batchelor, product manager, Alexander Tor, product manager as well, and head of product Joe Bickley, and Jane Lee, who works with us on the community side on industry solutions. Most of you should know her from Happy Hour. I'm pretty sure. If not, make sure you go watch it. So we have an exciting program today, some big announcements, and I'm really looking forward to your comment. Make sure you comment live, interact with us, we'll respond. It is informal, conversational, but also hugely insightful. So a lot of product community updates, and with this, you'll be seeing everyone here on the call jumping in and out, telling you more about what they have to show to you, exciting stuff. So with this, we can get started and tell you more about the next steps. So before we go on the product, quick update on our end. So last week we had yet another exciting offline event, Big Data London. I think it's one of the biggest trade fairs when it comes to data, which takes place here in London with us. We attended it, we sponsored it. You can see some really exciting pictures here on the top right. It was really impressive, a huge audience, a lot of vendors, from Snowflake to Microsoft, and a lot of little players, new players on the block as well. The data ecosystem is thriving. There's a lot of push on the data analytics stack. The modern analytics stack is the one that is driving a lot of innovation, and we're very glad to be part of it. Great conversations, and you can see here at the top left as well, I managed to get a selfie with Snowflake's founder Benoit Daguerre. Lots of fun, and thank you for everybody who attended and came around, such as Taylor King. But enough about updates and pictures. Let's get down to the interesting stuff. Speaking now with Joe Bickley, our head of product, who's going to tell you more about some exciting new product updates that is going to expand the universe of Astrato, its use cases and applicability. And I think, welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Martin. Great, looking forward to this session. So what I get to do today is to present some fairly significant kind of leaps forward in the way you can work with data in Astrato. We're very excited about these. There's certainly been some of the more kind of highly anticipated features from our customers and community and prospects working with the product. So Astrato's really been focused on how you can make access to your data warehouse for your business users as straightforward and streamlined as possible. But also, if you are an experienced person, make your job easier, make you faster to work with. So what we've are releasing right now and making available to all our customers is the ability to essentially do more kind of that last mile analysis on your data before you start building some dashboards. So ultimately, the aim is to let you have much more flexibility without having to write any SQL to get value from your data. So what we want to show today is a few of the features that we've just made available to help you do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into a new data view. I'm going to start from scratch, and I'm going to start working with basically customizing the way I'm going to pull data out of our data model using a few things: custom fields, more advanced measures capabilities, and then also show off our data explorer to help you find quick insights in your data model before you start building a dashboard. So let's dive right in. So I'm going to start with some data. I'm going to start with a brand new data view. Now I've already got some connections to Snowflake here, so I'm just going to connect to one of our existing instances and start looking at some tables very quickly. So I tend to use my bike sales demo quite a lot because I'm pretty familiar with the data, but I'm just going to pick 3 quick tables to help me work with this data. So let's say my aim is to work out, some information about bike sales, maybe by products, maybe some region and territory information in the data that I want to work with. So I pick my tables, I'm going to define a data view, I'm going to accept the suggested joins for combining those tables together. Now that in Astrato is the minimum amount of sort of semantic information we need to have before you can start building a dashboard. And when you do build a dashboard, you can use all of the capabilities to do things like, sums and averages on all of those existing fields. What we're adding in now is before you start that process, we're adding in the ability to do a little bit more on top of this data view. So let's take a look at a few things. So in many cases, the data that you have in your data warehouse should be in kind of pretty good analytics ready state, but sometimes there might be something that you maybe need a very, very small tweak for. And so you can do some of that last mile configuration at this point as well. So the first example of that is what we're adding with custom fields onto tables. So I have all of the fields and tables that I've got for my data warehouse, but maybe I need just that one little extra thing. So in this case, I've got things like the product cost and the sales amount, but maybe I actually wanted to have a margin figure that's on every row. So I can now add that in. So if I add a custom field, we've added in a suite of functions to let you add fields. Now you can use this for all kinds of things. So string functions might be where you want to concatenate, say, a first name and a surname field. So I can very quickly, without having to even use my keyboard, essentially start combining field values together. Or I can start using calculations. So in this case, if I wanted to work out a margin on every single row, then I can just simply take the sales amount column and then take away the cost amount column as well. So, and then call that margin. And now that's automatically added onto the tables. So if I preview that, scooch over to where I've just added that field, I now have my margin field added on the end. The data is a little spurious in this one, but all the same, essentially I've just added a calculated field. So wherever I use that now in my dashboard, I've got that field accessible and ready for me to use. Super easy. But yeah, we'll be adding more capabilities to that, so you can do different transformations or different kind of text operations, maybe some date functions and conditional logic as well over time. Okay, so custom fields. Next thing is custom measures. So we've always had, the standard features, sums and averages, standard deviations, all the kind of the obvious things. Now we're adding more flexibility, but we've taken a focus of making this really straightforward to use and code free. So let's say I want to add in a measure into my model that is maybe a sum of sales. Then I can do that very quickly, as we could do in the product before. So sum of sales amount. But maybe I want to, say, filter that down, that I only want to count sales amount based on a filter. So you could do things like maybe if I had, say, a channel field and I wanted to work out sales that came from the partners versus direct sales. Or in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on the region equal to Europe. So now I would have a measure that I could use anywhere in any of my workbooks that's standardized on this model. So let's just call this one EU sales, and we'll save this one for now. I can adjust the format if I need to, descriptions, all that kind of stuff as well. But what this filtering is letting me do is achieve quite a lot of capabilities. I can add lots of additional filters. We've got different capabilities. So you could say, well, I only want to count it if it's bigger than a certain number or less than a certain number. It really gives you that flexibility, but you don't need to learn anything new in terms of no new syntax languages, no structures at all. We can just use the point and click experience. So that's one created. Let's create a different one just to show a little bit more. So maybe I want to have, I looked at margin on a per row basis in my table. Maybe I want a global measure based on that as well. So let's look at, again, let's sum the costs. And because I want to get to a margin, I want to take the total product cost and I want to divide that by the sales amount. sales amount. And because maybe I want to turn that into a percentage or something, let's times that by a numeric value. Let's just pick a number and type in 100. Now, in many cases, when you have multiple aggregations that are working together, you also need to kind of make sure the order of execution is right. And if you're doing that in Excel, you're going to use brackets. And of course, we'll allow you to do that just point and click here. So no syntax, but just to call out, do this top calculation first before doing the bottom one. And now I can call that my margin and click on create. So once I've created those measures, the next thing I want to do, of course, is to make sure that I got them right. So the Data Explorer is a new feature that we're releasing to let you preview the data in your data model before you build your dashboard. So what I can do now, if I switch to this Data Explorer view, I can take a quick look at that, say, my EU sales calculation, and I can see that it's 8.9 million. Maybe I now need to think, well, how does that compare to the total number of sales that I have in my model? So I can just look at all the fields, maybe just throw that one in just to check it's doing it right. Okay, yep, so I've got a bigger number on sales amount. And of course, I want to make sure that that's doing it right over territories. So if I add in my region field here, I can now see clearly that if I put the same amount in, put it by that dimension, I should expect these numbers to be the same and get zeros in this column. So I can start evaluating whether the numbers are right and also their format as well. So if I add in my margin percentage here, for example, I can see that I've got a long decimal. So maybe actually I really want that to be a percentage. So I can go back, edit it in one place, maybe just take out the times by 100 and just change the format there to be a percentage and update it. Now, anywhere that I use that in any of my workbooks is going to have the right format, the right number, and I've got one place to come back and change it. And so each step that I go through in this is still generating SQL. So I can look here at the SQL that was behind it. So if I want to make sure that if I want to go back to my warehouse and make sure this is right, or maybe apply some of those changes to my warehouse, we're always generating good quality SQL as a result of these views as well. And then finally, of course, once I've done that, I want to use those in the workbook as well. So let's create a quick empty workbook. And very quickly, I can maybe grab a bar chart and look at the measure I just created. Let's take the EU sales one, for example, and then maybe I'm going to do that by country instead. So by sales country, and very quickly start working with that. So all driven by, all generating SQL, but all point and click experience in the product, really straightforward and quick to use. So for me, even though I know how to write SQL, I find this a great way to increase my speed, reduce mistakes and so on. But for someone who's not SQL friendly, you can do that very easily without a high skill threshold as well. So that's all the capabilities we're adding in from a data exploration and how you can handle different data types. And then the final thing I'll touch on before I hand it over to Piers is a really great new announcement for us as well. For those who've been following us, we've spent a lot of time really tightly integrating around the Snowflake data warehouse. And so we've managed to use lots of the features and core capabilities of that platform. What we're now adding is the additional support for other data warehouses as well. So now, if I want to do almost the same exercise, but pick on Google BigQuery, I can do that in the product as well. So I can select my project in Google BigQuery. I can pick either bike sales or maybe the New York taxis demo data set, and I can start working with the same great capabilities in Astrato, bringing all of that ease of use to start working with defining my data views, making my joins, and then very quickly getting all the way through to making a workbook in just a couple of clicks. So really, really great capabilities that we have in Astrato, bringing those to other ecosystems as well, making sure that they're very tightly integrated, that they're very straightforward to use, and also making sure that they're the right tools to use to get great experiences and great performance. So for example, if I want to just look at the average fares, in this case, of taxi rides from different boroughs in New York, I can get to that in super fast time and have great responses. And of course, everything we do generates SQL and the right SQL for the right data warehouse. And I can trace that all the way back through to Google BigQuery if I want to. So we're really excited about that. We're looking to add more capabilities on top of our BigQuery integration as well, making sure we leverage some of the key capabilities from that platform as we go forward as well. So that's it from me. So I think it's time for me to hand over to Piers. What do you think, Piers? Do you think it looks good?
I think that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Joe. It's great to see more data connections, more governance, more business logic, and less code. So really cool. So great demo from Joe. And I'm going to take you through some new features and a little bit of data storytelling. So I'm going to start on dates. One of the obvious features that we have in the product is date groups, and you may have seen this before, but we have expanded on it. So in front of me, I have a area chart, a few years worth of data. That's a good 6 years in there. So I don't want to see all of that. I want to look for patterns and trends in my data. So the theme of data storytelling. So if I click into the properties panel here, I can group that. I'm grouping on day of week. And if I change the format here, I've got the entire week days. I can see up here, right, on Thursday, we have a monthly charge build of $68. So we can see that there's certain events that happen on particular days, whether that's a preference of a customer. Maybe we need to dig into the data a little bit more. We could also group by quarter years, etc. And we have new formats for when we have timestamps as well, hours, minutes, seconds, etc. So enough about dates for now. I'm going to go into a bit more visual storytelling. So I have prepared some Amazon data for you. We can see that this is some nice KPIs in here. I've got a lot of white space. There's a few things I can do to improve the way that I'm talking about the quantity shipped here. So I have a chart of quantity shipped by product category, and maybe I want to tell a story about the top product categories shipped, or maybe break down into groups. So one of the ways that I can do this is through the use of color, just color alone on the existing chart. Whilst it won't solve the white space, you'll see how different features can lean towards a better visual experience. So if I open up the conditional coloring, which is in the style section of the properties panel, one of our new features is being able to click on a dimension value and highlight it. So let's say I want to select toys and games. I've now selected that, and it's populated directly within the properties panel without me having to type anything in. So it's not just no code, it is keyboard free analytics. I can change the color in the color picker, and I can pick a darker hue, goes in line with my dashboard, and I can add something else, and we will color in appliances, and let's select something that contrasts. I need to select appliances. Selected health and household. So this is one way to tell a story a bit more visually, using color to pick out values in the data. Another way would be to categorize it. This is where access bands come in, and also some other features I've used here. You'll see that on this sheet, which is a clone of the previous, now with access bands, I have added different categories in. So we have a low, medium, and high volume. in terms of shipping. And what I've done here, I'll show you the properties for this. In the access section, we have a new section called access bands, where we can, example here, low is less than 3 million. I can update that in there. Instead of value, I can change the color. I can do something like this. So I've set it between 0 and 3 million. I've got medium between 3 and 6 million, and anything beyond 6 is in high. So this way, I've not only used up the white space, I'm able to tell a story. I've also used our conditional coloring to change the color of the bars. So between 3 million and between 6 million, I have a medium reddish color, and I have the brown above 6, and the same color as the previous sheet is still in orange. So a fantastic way to communicate different bands of data, different thresholds, typically used for benchmarking. If we compare this to the previous chart, where it's a lot of white space, now it's very, very difficult to distinguish the difference between what's high and low. You just see a lot of things clustered across the axis. So back to access band, I've also added reference lines. So that's 3 features in there: reference lines, the custom coloring, and access bands. The custom coloring, which I previously showed with dimension rules, I have used here with 2 simple measurables because we have the default color. And that's it. I've used 3 features to improve the chart from having something that was full of white space to something that's quite clear, easy to understand, and a beautiful visualization. So that's one part of data storytelling. That's the visual part. When we get something that's a little bit deeper and analytical is where we have more advanced analytics coming. So I will take you through this. This is a dashboard about channel spend in advertising. So imagine you're in media and advertising and you say, okay, what budget should I spend on each channel? And what return on investment will I get? So I'm going to just put in a few random values. Let's do 6,000 on email. We'll do 12,000, very generous, on video. 15 on social media, and I'm going to do 0 on search. I'll click to run the model. And what we're going to do now is we're going to write back a new value into a table, and a model is going to run, triggered by the write back from Astrato, and will receive an output, and you'll visualize that on the dashboard. So watch this. Scenario 57 will be coming in now. There it is, it's thinking. So what's happening in the background is this is connecting to Snowflake's Snowpark feature, which lets you run user-defined functions in Python and Java. And there we have it. We spent $33,000, not that quickly. This is a tool for planning. And we have 581,000 predicted return on investment. This is from a trained data set. So we've done some training on data stored in Snowflake, and we've added that. So we can use Snowpark for data science and machine learning, and Astrato can be a key part of that, not just feeding, in this case, different budgeting scenarios in. It's powered by writeback. So we can trigger these things running, and that makes for a full data app experience. And you might be asking, what's a data app? And how does this really work? So I'll break that down for you over here. A nice alternative to slides is actually presenting something directly in Astrato. So how this works is we write back to a table, and it's an automatic requery of data. In our input box, that's what we do by default. Then the Python function runs against the table, and of course, data is returned in a view containing that function. That's powered by Snowpark, which is a Snowflake feature. So for us, that means we visualize data, write back, and we can include different machine learning techniques. So that's 3 pillars to support data apps and how Astrato is part of that. So now you've seen something pretty cool, something we haven't shown you before in Astrato Live. Yeah, Alex, do you want to let me know what you think? And over to you.
Yeah, looks good. So the question for you, Piers, right? So on I really like the dates, right? But will you be supporting things like the lunar calendar, or apart from just Gregorian?
That's a good question, and I would actually say, whilst that's probably not going to make it into the roadmap, you can always add a feature request to Astrato Galaxy in our community.
Yeah, will do. I want to get the Hebrew calendar. Okay, cool. Yeah, I like
know
what I
someone
saw.
who'd be interested in that.
Yeah. So we're going to switch gears a little bit here. So if you come back to the slideshow as well. So we've seen a lot of like cool features that been very centric around kind of like no code and getting things started very easily by just clicking on the screen. And now I want to switch gears a little bit to and kind of appeal to the audience that gets almost a little bit like a moist upper lip whenever you start thinking about technical things and flows and all of these weird things that can happen inside of software, right? And this is a little bit what Actions is for. So Actions has been a long project from us that we're now ready to ship the first iteration of. And we can go to the next slide. And what happens within Actions is the ability to essentially program your dashboards and turn them sort of not into dashboards anymore and into more data experiences, where you're able to introduce logic and listen for user input and user interactivity. And you're able to do all of this without actually writing any type of code. So if we go to the next slide again. So what happens here, and sadly, I wanted the little memes to animate, and it would say something along the lines, but why, right? So why would we even be doing this? Why would we kind of like unleash the Kraken onto your dashboards and allow you to build enormously stupid things, but also enormously valuable things? And a lot of the times it's because dashboard is a living creature. A dashboard is a living thing, right? It usually starts off by the business having some kind of question, maybe they even create it themselves. But that's just the starting point. It doesn't end there. And then you get more and more requests as your users become more data literate, and as they're getting a bit more comfortable with the data, they start asking for more and more different data sets to join onto the ones they're already analyzing. And before you know it, your one simplistic kind of dashboard has just grown into this big, gigantic monster. And at that point, you might want to be able to rein this in a little bit. Perhaps you want to guide your users down a specific path of analysis, or wherever you might want to be able to go, right? And this is partially what we're looking to do together with Actions, to kind of give that author the flexibility to not only create a little bit of piece of glass that you look at once, but be able to craft interactive experiences for their end users without necessarily having to write code to do it. There's only so many programmers in the world. There's only so many data analysts as well. But at least we want to give that power to data analysts so they can actually craft really engaging data experiences. So if we swap over to my shared screen, I will show you a couple of different, very naive scenarios, a very naive different use cases. But hopefully it will kind of get your mind started a little bit. And Actions isn't really a feature in isolation. Actions is sort of that glue that will now tie a lot of different features that we have shipped over the years together, right? So layering, for example, and variables, and the ability to have different shapes and whatever it might be. So what you will see starting from not tomorrow, but from 2 weeks from now, if you are interested, reach out to me directly, and I can add you to sort of a pre-program for this. Is that you will see a few different new icons popping up on the left-hand side of the panel here. one of them being actions in this case. And actions is the ability for you to visually program different flows that happens inside of the application. And this can be things like I clicked on a button, or a user clicked on a button, and now I want to be able to do something. Perhaps I want to listen for some type of event. Perhaps whenever a user opens the application or comes into a sheet, or if I just want to run something on a loop, for example, then all of this is different things that you can do right now in the first iteration. So one of the things that you, for example, could build is something silly like this. Maybe you have a dashboard with a few different metrics that's running inside of it, but it doesn't really tell the user what it's actually doing. Perhaps you want to be able to provide a little bit more context around your analysis. But to not waste space and have sort of explaining layers all over your dashboard visible at all times, why don't you just hide it behind a little bit of like a guidance layer or a help layer? So in this case, if I click on a little button, you'll see that we can now start showing additional things onto the screen, right? And if I would like to click on it again, it disappears, right? So a very contrived example, but I do think you can start thinking about different use cases in your own world, where you might want to be able to conditionally show or hide things that you might have in your dashboard. And it's fairly trivial to set up. But as I pointed out, we're now kind of tying all of these different features together. So if you have different groups, for example, you can say that this should have a specific view mode, that whenever I look at something, I want to be able to show, for example, the help layer, which in this case is a variable. So whenever I click on a button, so this becomes a little bit complex here, but whenever I click on my button, if show help variable is true, then set it to false, or vice versa. And since my group is now conditionally showing, depending on that variable, we can now start building a lot of different flows. So it's super contrived, super simplistic example in this case, but it kind of gets the point across. And this can grow into these kind of massive beasts. For example, we internally have an app that continuously runs a query to check for new data. And if new data has arrived into the data store, display a little bit of a pop-up on the screen to inform the users that, hey, we just had a new data intake, for example, right? So you could do things along those lines, or track errors, for example. So if we had a data intake that failed, then now make a sheet visible that just shows errors, for example. So you can have all these kind of funky stuff here. And if you just don't want to do help layers, perhaps you want to do something simplistic like a filter layer. So the same thing here. I mocked up a little bit of a dashboard here. It looks really nice, but the users keep asking for more and more filtering capabilities. So why not provide that? But we don't want to put it on the dashboard itself. So maybe we'll just hide it behind some additional filters. If you were a designer, you would probably do it much nicer than I did, with like a blurred background and some nicer looking colors and whatnot. But now you can start building pop-ups, additional depths to your applications, or why not have pre-selected filters or pre-selected groups to toggle between different charts that might show different dimensionalities, for example. So this was a very, very short intro to actions. And actions is something that we will be rolling out continuously now. So we are shipping it in this release. It will be toggled off for the majority of the users to begin with. If you want to toggle on for your own instance of Astrato, let us know and we'll do that for you. And then we'll slowly but surely start rolling it out to our users groups over time. And this was a little bit it when it came to actions today. So the way that I would use it right now, as I kind of showed here, is to give a little bit more interactivity into your dashboards, perhaps even have some like intro sheet to your dashboard, where through different buttons or imagery or something along those lines, guide users to the different areas, especially if your dashboard is starting to grow very big, where you might have topical areas and 15, 20 sections deep. You might want to have some quick links for users to quickly access to navigate through, to the most relevant part of that analysis for them. So it's a lot about being able to build interactivity for your end users so that they can overcome that kind of hurdle when it comes to business intelligence. And I think it might have been Gartner that said, I'm not sure if this number is true anymore, but that BI, the failure rate of business intelligence projects is 70 to 80%. I think it might be a little bit lower these days, but it is still true, right? And when you kind of look at our users, they still expect a really good experience, regardless if they fire up an app on their iPhone or if they come to your dashboards. They kind of expect that type of experience. So we're looking to provide you as the author the ability to craft those experiences for your end users, but also to support you. So as the requirements onto your dashboards changes and evolve over time and become more complex, that the actual app, so that Astrato is not the limiting ceiling for what you're able to achieve inside of the dashboard itself. So if we're now coming back to the slide deck again, so this is the first iteration of actions. So what we're looking to do next here is the ability for you to even do more things. So having additional events to run actions, have more of what we call outcomes, which is what kind of happens at the end of an action chain. So these are now rapidly shipping as we're kind of delivering the framework and the first iteration of this. So coming in just a week's time, we're hoping to have things like be able to run preset filters whenever you open your workbook. We are also hoping to have things like custom events. Everything should be clickable inside of the system, so not only buttons. So that also goes for things like hover and focus. So if you hover over data points, perhaps you want to do something. We're also then looking to do things like REST requests. So if you want to be able to track usage statistics of your dashboard, you can have something like whenever my dashboard opens, fire off an event to Google Analytics because I want to be able to track the user adoption of our dashboards, for example. All of these different types of use cases. And that was it for me today. So I hope I made your upper lip a little bit more moist than it was before. And then I think it's over to the next speaker.
Hi, everyone. So
a little bit excited, hopefully.
Well, if you guys want to get really excited, we've got something that will really make your upper lip moist. And you guys were able to see parts of a whole, the little bit of Astrato. That's really cool. But if you want to see it in action, we've recently done a great Astrato dash off. And we had our own Piers Batchelor and our very own Stephanie French come on, and they've built an app live within 10 minutes in Astrato, start to finish, bringing in the data. It was very fast and easy, and you can watch them work. And we had a lot of people ask. They really wanted to vote on a winner. Originally, we didn't want to pit them against each other. It's supposed to be friendly competition, but we've decided to have a vote. So please, we can start off with seeing Stephanie French's dashboard. This is it. Drink it in. It's got like a really great color scheme, very, very blue greenish. I really like this one. And we've got Pierce's. And this one's a bit more colorful. He's got some great KPIs. He's put the filter on the left side. You can see a bit of a difference. So quick, everybody, let's get these votes and let's see who's better. And before anyone asks, we do not have prizes for them, but they do get the glory that they will carry with them until the next dash off. And then we'll see who will take the belt. And on the next slide, you'll see both of them smaller, but you can get a feel of which one you like better. Come in and vote. I won't say anything. I must stay impartial, but please come in. We'll just give this a quick minute. Wait a bit. Personally, you can watch it live. You can see all the commentary. I think we were coming up with really funny names for their fake companies. We've got Pardon My French for Stephanie French, and we've got, I think it's the Bachelor. We have Piers saying he votes for Piers Batchelor. It must be a different Piers Batchelor commenting this. We've got David Lee coming in saying, ha, Piers. Don't know if that's a vote for Piers or just laughing at his comment. We've got one for Stephanie French. But all right, keep commenting, keep rolling them in. We've got Herb saying likes filters on the left. Piers, okay, interesting. And we've got commentary on why they chose to put things in certain places. So watch it. It's in the comments, and vote, vote, vote. All right, perfect. We'll close the voting for now, but you guys can keep coming in and doing votes later on.
Hey, Jane, I just got connected here. Hi. Beautiful examples, and I think that's what it's all about. We want to enable people to be able to create something relatively quick, almost in a PowerPoint-like experience. And yeah, the fact that both of them managed to achieve that relatively easily is an attestation, in our view, to the product. Of course, we're biased because obviously we're part of Astrato and part of BizLib, but hopefully soon, and if you like that, would like to welcome and invite externals to come and compete in a dash off. Joachim, looking at you here. All of that. Whatever competitions are up, Jane, what's happening in the community space?
Interesting you asked. So we do participate in the Data DNA Challenge. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this now, but there is an upcoming challenge. The data set has not been released yet. The last one was just closed. It was about data scientists' salaries. However, that we'll stick with the theme, makes your upper lip moist. You guys can participate in next round, and definitely post what you've built in the community page, community.astrato.io. The comments were above. Our very own Joe Worthington has thrown the link in the comments. Go there, post what you've done. I'm seeing a lot of names in here that are very familiar, because I know a lot of people watching have built some really great things. You can go there to find inspiration. Go there to build something of your own. And if you have questions, you want pointers, we're here. The community's here to help you, and we'll all become better data storytellers.
Wunderbar. Coolio, people have commented. So who's the winner, Jane? Can you announce it?
Oh, that's tough. I'm seeing a lot of Stephanie French. I think she might get the belt for this time being.
Congratulations, Stephanie. Sorry about that, Piers. I must say, though, I think your dashboard is excellent as well. But I think the consistent color gives it an aesthetically more pleasant look and feel. And you know what? That's actually a very important point. The eye of people, the eye is basically the API to your brain, right? And the eye wants to be spoiled. Your eye wants to look at beautiful things, and that's why.
Deep.
Hashtag deep. That's why creating presentable and beautiful dashboards matters. I've also heard a lot of times, right? If it looks nice and organized and consistent when it comes to colors, people also trust the numbers that lie behind it. So I think that's something that matters. And other than that, an amazing summary today from the product team. Great stories. A lot of moist lips today, I can see. It's a recurring theme. So from new data connection, BigQuery. So now we have a much wider audience who can start exploring Astrato on their data sets who don't have Snowflake. I think Snowflake and BigQuery are very, very similar in terms of speed benefits. Of course, there's some intricacies that are different there, but we are very, very excited to release it and give a wider audience the opportunity to explore Astrato. Advanced measures, advanced calculations. We're going to be investing more in that. We want to empower the business users to do that last mile analysis without have to even write SQL or go to the data warehouse and into Snowflake and the important thing here is as well that nothing gets stored in Astrato. All the logic is being pushed down to Snowflake, and I think that's a key differentiator on that. Piers showcase advanced descriptive capabilities for line charts and more. And again, this is all about making your data talk, making the charts and dashboards more easily readable to an audience. And these are the little things that we know do matter. But personally, I was most excited, and sorry about that, Alex, but seriously, I'm very, very excited with the Snowpark integration. That, for the very first time, unleashes the possibility to combine Python and advanced machine learning models and blend it together with data analytics in one unified interface for the business user to look at, to analyze, and to generate more advanced insights without having to go to a data scientist or elsewhere. So I think that shows the unique integration with Snowflake. Anything of those kind of capabilities that are being released in Snowflake in the future and not right now, automatically baked in Surface and Astrato. And that is a great, great attestation. Although Actions, I think, opened up, Pandora's box of creative use cases, what can be done. I know Vislib Actions are extremely popular, but now we're taking that to the next level. What Alex showcased today with a show and hide is just the beginning there. Personally, I would say one use case that I find particularly interesting is imagine you can define an action that rotates through a list of dimensions and produces sheet PDFs or Excel extracts for each of those dimensional values. So imagine you have a list of employees and you want to print individual PDF reports of the analytics for each individual employee. Ad hoc reporting can also be achieved using that. And yeah. So
and once we ship the
Alex, you've gone.
We've lost you, Alex.
Oh, you got on mute. I thought my sound disappeared. Once you figure out you mute, one more item I think that's also coming is being able to update chart properties via Actions. So imagine you have a button at the top right that says change dimension from region to country, and then all 5 charts are updating their dimensional values. The axis is being updated, so you'll be able to control a lot of things on the screen. Truly creating, what Alex called data experience or guided analytics, but ultimately, hand-holding the user on a data journey and enable them to do interactive storytelling. So extremely powerful. Try it out. And Alex, do we have your back? You're back. Welcome.
Awesome. So imagine if you just have a hover event and you try to hover over a chart, but every time a user hovers over the chart, you shift the X and Y coordinates 20 pixels to the left and up so that you can actually never hover over a chart because it just moves away from your cursor. That's the kind of stupid stuff you can build. That's fun.
And infinite loops, I heard, so the trolls are already out there.
Oh, yes, you get it. You can build a game loop inside of Astrato now.
Wunderbar. Okay, with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility, everyone. So we're almost at the end of the hour. Joe, do you have any wrapping words for the crowd?
Well, data is big, so BigQuery as well. Really, I think it's been really great to see how sort of seamless applying all of the good stuff on top of the different data sources being. We also have others in the wings as well, where we'll be able to bring that to other data sources, other providers as well. So really looking forward to that. And also how we can leverage some of the different types of things like Snowpark from those other platforms as well. So
yeah. So, a couple of other use cases such as forecasting, churn analytics, some predictions, or more advanced what-if simulations, where you truly want the power of just basic, filtering, but also the Python behind the scenes, all in a nicely organized user interface for your average Joe end user, is actually amazing. And I think, it's new in the space for sure. So a clear differentiator for Astrato and our value proposition. Wonderful. Feedback has been great. Everyone, thank you very much for watching, for commenting, participating. Make sure you try out Actions as we reach out to Alex, I think, or to us via support if you want it activated. But I think it will be widely rolled out, I think, in a couple of weeks. It's already available for you, Joachim. Already explored and built like a really fancy Star Wars control dashboard. Other than that, stay tuned. We have an exciting roadmap for the rest of the year. A custom report, ad hoc self-service reporting in the UI, maybe some elements around write-back improvements. So it's getting extremely exciting. And as always, we're having so much fun working on those items and working in close collaboration with you guys, our customers, but also our power users. We're exploring, giving us some amazing, fruitful ideas at all times. This is a big enjoyment, and thank you very much for listening in. Stay tuned and follow us, because we'll be posting a lot of new amazing stuff and use cases and example dashboards at all times. Wunderbar. Herp is already there. Wunderbar. Well done. I find it exciting. Amazing. So with this, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I wish you a good afternoon. Reach out to us if you have any more questions and try it out for yourself. Astrato.
Thanks, everyone.
Free for up to 5 users, and explore it and become data-driven. Well done.
Bye, everyone.